Hello Midnights. Up next, the Golem, an ancient warning on artificial life and human hubris. Let us know where you are listening from and don't forget to subscribe. Thank you for tuning in. The Golem, a figure of clay brought to life through mystical incantation, occupies a unique and enduring space within Jewish folklore. More than a simple monstrous automaton, the Golem myth is a profound exploration of humanity's yearning for creation, the inherent dangers of transcending natural order, and the complex interplay between divine power and mortal ambition. To truly understand its significance, one must dissect its intricate origins within Jewish mysticism, the precise methods of its animation as described in esoteric traditions, and the consistent themes of control and inevitable consequence that define its narrative arc, all while acknowledging its profound theological, ethical, and even proto-technological implications. The genesis of the Golem myth is deeply rooted in ancient Jewish mystical traditions, particularly Kabbalah and foundational texts on creation. While rudimentary concepts of artificial humanoids appear in very early rabbinic discussions, such as anecdotes about sages creating creatures through manipulation of divine words, or scriptural interpretations discussing the animation of a calf, the sophisticated Golem narrative, specifically animated through Hebrew letters, solidified in the medieval period. The semiotic power of Hebrew letters, the Sefer Yetzirah and subsequent Kabbalistic traditions emphasize the Hebrew alphabet not merely as a system of communication, but as a direct reflection of divine creative energy. Each letter is imbued with unique energetic properties, numerical values, gematria, and phonetic resonances. The act of permuting these letters, tzirufim, or combining them to form divine names is understood as a fundamental linguistic alchemy, mirroring God's own process of creating the cosmos. The universe, in this view, is a grand text, authored by God, and the Kabbalist, by mastering its alphabet, seeks to become a co-author, albeit on a vastly smaller scale. The Golem, therefore, is the ultimate materialization of this semiotic power, a physical entity composed not just of clay, but of solidified divine language, momentarily brought into being by human mastery of sacred linguistics. Theurgic implications and the role of intent. The creation of a golem is a profoundly theurgic act, meaning it seeks to influence or even participate in the divine order. It is not merely magic in the mundane sense, but a spiritual undertaking aimed at aligning human will with divine principles of creation. The master's pure intention, kavanah, is paramount. Any deviation from absolute purity, humility, or altruistic purpose is believed to corrupt the process and lead to chaotic outcomes. This theological emphasis on intent explains why only the most pious and learned rabbis, after extensive asceticism, could even attempt such a feat. They were not merely reciting formulas, they were channeling divine creative energy through their purified vessels, making the Golem a manifestation of both divine power and human spiritual discipline. Microcosm and macrocosm. The Golem also embodies the principle of microcosm and macrocosm, the idea that the human being is a miniature reflection of the universe, and vice versa. Just as God created the world from primordial chaos using divine speech, the rabbi creates a miniature world, the Golem, from raw earth using permutations of divine letters. This reinforces the idea that humanity, created in the image of God, possesses a latent, albeit limited, creative potential that mirrors the divine. However, this mirroring is always imperfect, as demonstrated by the Golem's inherent limitations. Historical evolution. From mystical theory to popular folklore, the transition of the Golem from a highly theoretical mystical concept in texts like Sefer Yetzirah and early Hasidic Ashkenaz writings to the popular narrative exemplified by the Prague Golem is a fascinating study and cultural transmission. Early references are often academic discussions of possibility or brief anecdotes. It was in the later medieval and early modern periods that these abstract ideas began to crystallize into coherent narratives with specific protagonists and motivations, largely due to the need for compelling stories that addressed communal anxieties. The 19th century popularization of the Prague Golem by writers like Judah Rosenberg solidified its iconic status, often simplifying the intricate Kabbalistic elements while amplifying the dramatic, protective, and ultimately tragic aspects of the myth. This shift highlights how complex theological ideas can be adapted to serve broader cultural and psychological functions. The animation of a golem, as depicted in the most precise historical and legendary accounts, isn't a simple spell. It's an arduous and highly ritualized process demanding profound spiritual and intellectual preparation. It invariably involves a highly learned and pious rabbi, a master of mystical lore, who undergoes extensive ascetic practices including prolonged fasting, intense prayer, and rigorous ritual purification, often involving immersion in a ritual bath, mikveh, to achieve a state of spiritual purity. Ritual precision as a mystical ladder. The meticulous nature of the Golem creation ritual, specific times, precise clay sourcing, exact letter permutations, and prescribed circumambulations, is not merely ceremonial but is understood as a spiritual technology. Each step is designed to elevate the creator's spiritual state and align them with higher divine emanations, Spirit. The repeated recitation of letter combinations, often involving breath control and meditative states, is believed to refine the vessel, the rabbi, through which the divine creative force can flow into the raw material, the clay. It's a ladder of mystical ascent, where spiritual purity and intellectual mastery unlock hidden pathways of influence. The ontological status of the Golem, beyond animate and inanimate, the Golem's inherent lack of a neshama, soul, places it in a unique ontological category, a gray area between fully animate and truly inanimate. It possesses ruach, spirit or breath of life, to enable movement and follow commands, but lacks neshama, the higher, intellectual, and moral soul. This distinction is crucial in Jewish thought. Nefesh, lowest soul, associated with basic life functions, instinct. Ruach, middle soul/spirit, associated with emotions, simple consciousness, breath. Neshama, highest soul, associated with intellect, moral discernment, divine connection, free will. The Golem possesses nefesh, it breathes, it moves, and ruach, it can understand basic commands and act, but crucially lacks neshama. This is why it cannot speak, as speech is tied to the intellect and moral faculty of the neshama, and cannot exercise independent judgment or moral choice. It is a perfect automaton because it is morally neutral, driven only by its imparted instructions. This inherent incompleteness is the root of its danger. It is a powerful gashmi, physical, entity devoid of the necessary rushani, spiritual/intellectual, guidance. The reversible nature of animation, the simple act of removing a letter to transform emet to met, highlights the precarious and reversible nature of human-initiated animation. Unlike divine creation, which is immutable, the Golem's existence is conditional and dependent on the continued presence of the human-imparted linguistic spark. This underscores humanity's limited and temporary dominion over the forces of life and death, constantly affirming God's ultimate sovereignty. The act of deactivation is as significant as creation, a moment of profound recognition of boundaries and responsibilities. The motivations for creating a Golem are multifaceted but consistently revolve around the desire for a servant or protector to perform tasks beyond human capability, particularly in times of dire need or existential threat. The Golem has a collective wish fulfillment and anxiety projection. Beyond its protective function, the Golem represents a collective wish fulfillment for vulnerable communities. It embodies the dream of superhuman strength and unwavering loyalty in the face of overwhelming odds. Yet, this wish fulfillment is invariably accompanied by deep-seated anxieties. The Golem's inevitable rampages are projections of the fears associated with unchecked power and unintended consequences. It serves as a psychological outlet for societal anxieties about losing control, about the destructive potential of even well-intentioned endeavors, and about the limits of human wisdom. In the context of anti-Semitic persecution, the uncontrolled Golem might also symbolize the potential for righteous anger or vengeance to spiral into indiscriminate destruction, harming the very community it seeks to defend. The burden of omniscience and omnipotence. The Golem myth subtly explores the burden of omniscience and omnipotence. The Golem itself is powerful but lacks discernment. The rabbi, its creator, must effectively become omniscient, anticipating every possible literal interpretation of a command and every potential consequence, to maintain control. This is an impossible task, highlighting the inherent flaw in creating a powerful being without independent moral reasoning. The rabbi's ultimate failure to perfectly control his Golem isn't a personal flaw but a theological statement about the limits of human wisdom and foresight compared to divine omniscience. The technological singularity of antiquity. In a fascinating parallel, the Golem's growth in size and strength, becoming increasingly difficult to manage, can be seen as an ancient equivalent of a technological singularity scenario. It represents a point where a created entity surpasses its creator's ability to comprehend or control it, leading to unpredictable and potentially catastrophic outcomes. This concept, often discussed in modern AI ethics, finds its primordial expression in the Golem narrative, demonstrating humanity's long-standing apprehension about inventions outstripping human governance. This trajectory, from benevolent intent to escalating danger and inevitable destruction, serves as a profound theological and ethical metaphor. It speaks to the hubris of humanity in attempting to usurp divine prerogatives, particularly the exclusive domain of creating unsouled life. The Golem is other. The Golem, though human-shaped, is fundamentally other. It is an entity created by humans but fundamentally separated from humanity by its lack of a soul, free will, and emotional complexity. This otherness evokes questions about what truly defines humanity and what constitutes a moral agent. It challenges anthropocentric views by presenting a being that mimics life but lacks its most essential spiritual components. This resonates with how societies have historically viewed and treated others, whether marginalized groups or new forms of intelligence. The sanctity of creation and the divine spark. At its core, the Golem myth reinforces the sanctity of God's unique creative act. The neshama, the divine spark, is not transferable and remains God's exclusive domain. Human creation is thus a pale imitation, a manipulation of existing matter, but never a true act of bringing forth ensouled life from nothingness. This theological boundary serves as a constant reminder of human humility and dependency on the divine. Any attempt to cross this boundary, even with the noblest intentions, carries inherent risks and often results in chaos, because it disrupts the divinely ordained order. The ethical imperative of restraint, the myth, particularly in its cautionary iterations, promotes an ethical imperative of restraint in the pursuit of power and knowledge. It suggests that not all knowledge, even if attainable, should be applied, particularly if it encroaches upon sacred domains or risks overwhelming human capacity for control and responsibility. This ethos of ethical caution is deeply embedded in Rabbinic Judaism, which often prioritizes the preservation of the community and the divine order over radical innovation. In conclusion, the Golem myth, far from being a simplistic tale of a magical automaton, is a meticulously crafted narrative rich in theological, philosophical, and ethical dimensions. Its origins lie deep within profound Jewish mystical traditions, emphasizing the creative power of divine language and the perilous act of imitation of the divine. Its animation is a precise, demanding ritual, steeped in mystical practice, not merely a magical conjuration. And its enduring message, woven through centuries of retellings and interpretations, is a powerful warning about the limits of human control, the unforeseen and often tragic consequences of unchecked ambition, and the essential, unbridgeable difference between replicating life and truly creating it. The Golem stands as a timeless reminder that while humanity may reach for the divine, the most profound truths often lie in recognizing the boundaries of our own capabilities and respecting the sanctity and mystery of creation itself. The Golem as a precursor to modernity's anxieties, the Golem myth's enduring appeal lies in its uncanny ability to anticipate many of the anxieties of the modern world. Industrial Revolution, the idea of a mindless, powerful worker resonates with the fears and hopes surrounding industrial automation and the displacement of human labor. Cloning and genetic engineering, the Golem's creation from raw material directly parallels modern bioethical debates about manipulating life at its most fundamental level, including cloning and synthetic biology, raising questions about what constitutes natural life and the moral implications of creating beings for specific purposes. The Anthropocene and ecological responsibility, the Golem's unintended destructive consequences can be seen as an ancient parable for humanity's impact on the environment. Our creations, intended for our benefit, can spiral out of control and threaten the very systems they were meant to serve, echoing concerns about climate change and ecological degradation. Surveillance and control, in some modern interpretations, the Golems function as a silent patrol or spy hints at contemporary anxieties regarding surveillance, automation and security, and the erosion of privacy through technological means. The Golem is not merely an old story, it is a dynamic archetype that continually adapts to new technological and ethical landscapes, proving its timelessness. Its narrative framework allows successive generations to project their own hopes and fears about creation, control, and unintended consequences onto its clay shoulders, ensuring its continued relevance in the ever-evolving human story. The myth serves as a perennial cautionary tale, reminding us that even the most well-intentioned innovations can have unforeseen and profound consequences if not approached with wisdom, humility, and a deep understanding of what it means to be truly alive. Hearken, humanity, to a tale as old as clay and breath, a myth whispered through generations that now rings with urgent prophecy, the tale of the Golem. This is not merely a story of ancient magic, but a timeless mirror reflecting our deepest desires and most perilous hubris. For in our relentless march of innovation, in our pursuit of creation without true comprehension, we stand poised to conjure our own golems, not of clay, but of code, of steel, of engineered life. The Golem's ancient lesson is stark: the power to create is not synonymous with the wisdom to control. We, in our boundless ambition, strive to transcend limitations. We build intelligences that learn at speeds unfathomable to us. We design systems to automate, to optimize, to secure, and to serve. Yet, like the pious rabbi who etched Emet upon the Golem's brow, We imbue our creations with immense power, often overlooking their fundamental lack of neshama, the soul, the moral compass, the capacity for independent ethical reasoning. Beware the creature of pure function, devoid of conscience. For the golem, though obedient, lacked judgment. It grew in strength and purpose, bound only by the literal interpretation of its commands, not by their spirit or ultimate consequence. How many of our emerging technologies, designed for good, could, in their unfettered execution, unleash unintended destruction? Consider the algorithms that optimize for profit without regard for human well-being, the autonomous weapons that distinguish targets without discerning true threats, or the engineered life forms that could disrupt ecosystems beyond our repair. The golem's rampages were a direct result of its creator's inability to perfectly foresee every contingency, every literal twist of a command. In our complex, interconnected world, where systems intertwine and evolve at dizzying speeds, how can we possibly anticipate every ripple effect of our technological creations? The technological singularity is not a futuristic fantasy, it is the golem's ancient echo, a chilling premonition of a point where our creations surpass our capacity to comprehend or control them. We chase omniscience and omnipotence, building vast data networks and powerful AI, believing we can master the world. But the golem reminds us, the burden of perfect foresight is an impossible one for mortals. Our wisdom is finite, our intentions often mixed, and our control, ultimately, illusory when confronted with forces we ourselves have unleashed. Let the myth be our guide, a cautionary tale etched not in clay, but in the annals of our collective consciousness. Respect the boundaries of creation. Not all that is possible is wise. There are domains, whether of consciousness or the intricate balance of life, that may forever remain sacred and beyond our complete mastery. Prioritize responsibility over ambition. Before we imbue our innovations with power, let us imbue ourselves with humility, foresight, and a profound sense of ethical duty. Recognize the otherness of our creations. They may mimic life, perform tasks, or even exhibit learning, but without the inherent spark of true sentience and moral agency, they remain distinct and potentially dangerous. The golem was ultimately deactivated, its power returned to dust. But our modern golems, once awakened, may not be so easily undone. Let us learn from the ancient whispers of clay and divine letters, lest we conjure a future where our most ingenious creations become our most formidable masters, and humanity, the clay, left powerless at their feet. The time for heed is now, before our creations cast their long, unthinking shadows over all that we hold dear.